Hey guys, welcome back. Sports with Mano Imano. It's April 29th, 2019. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Jim. How are you? Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show.
Yep. So, obviously, we might as well just jump right into the fray, right? The NFL draft recap. First of all, I think overall we did pretty well in some of our selections, but
No, I think we were pretty as close as just about anybody out there. Obviously,
yep.
I think number four pick came out of nowhere. I don't see anybody had
Wilkins.
Cleveland Farrell going to the Oakland Raiders at four,
Yeah.
but Murray obviously was selected number one by the Cards. You made a poignant observation that you would not draft a 5'9" quarterback. That's the size of the microphone that we're speaking into.
Especially only having 1 year as a starting quarterback at Oklahoma. I just not doubting the kid's very athletic, but I just wonder. They had their eyes set on him. I mean, that was not going to happen. So.
Yeah, so he's locked in, and good luck to the Cardinals and Murray going forward. So they're all in on him. Bosa went number two.
Yep.
Right. I think that's a good fit for him.
Yep.
I think with we talked about now they solidified both sides of their D line. The New York Jets we got right. Quinnen Williams. I think that was a good pick, and it was really between him and Josh Allen. And obviously we're going to get to pick number 6 very soon, and I think you and I will have a healthy debate on the Giants selection.
Okay.
So, like we talked about the Raiders at 4, I think we both thought Ed Oliver. However, he wound up going 8 to Buffalo. And again, he fell kind of where he should have fallen. But, Mike Mayock is the new GM of the Raiders, and with Gruden. And, Mayock comes across as kind of a very arrogant guy, I think, is safe to say. So,
No question about it.
he just rode his horse with Cleveland Farrell, so we'll see how he pans out. He's a good ball player. I'm not saying he's not, but like I just said earlier, a lot of people didn't have him the fourth-rated overall prospect coming into the draft. We talked about Devin White, and the Bucks picked him, and we nailed that one. And I still think he is probably, to me,
Yeah.
is one of the best players in the draft.
You
so.
did have him very high on your board. I'll give you that. I didn't see him going before Josh Allen, but
All right, so let's get to the elephant in the room. The New York Giants with the number 6 selection in the 2019 NFL Draft. Select,
okay.
and I'll let you take it from there because you pretty much you kind of said it last week, and I think your prognostication was right on money that the Giants were all in on a quarterback, and I disagreed. So I'll let you take the form.
All right. Well, listen. I mean, that was my opinion because I absolutely positively think they needed to fill that hole. And I know I'm not writing Eli Manning off. I kind of either thought it was going to be Drew Lock or Haskins or Jones. I didn't see Jones coming, but you know what? Overall, I like the kid. And I know a lot of speculation is saying, oh, of course he would have been there at 16. I don't know that for sure, and I'm going to give Gettleman credit for sticking to his guns this time. I like the kid,
Okay.
and I looked at his numbers, and he had a pretty solid career. I mean, I know Duke, isn't like they don't play an Alabama type schedule, but they play a good schedule.
Right. Well, he's actually probably the fourth best Duke athlete right now in the class, behind Zion Williamson and Cam Reddish and R.J. Barrett, and now you can say Daniel Jones. So
Fair enough.
my point about this is, I stated Josh Allen. Josh Allen was sitting there. I think he was a need. However, I would speculate Jones would have been there at 17. Now, to defend Gettleman or any team out there that is in need of a quarterback, and if you got the 6th pick, I fully understand the philosophy of if this is your guy, you've been scouting him for months and months and this, that, and the other thing,
And
and
take him.
he's your guy. you cannot risk the fact that somebody can jump you or that he's not going to be there at 17. So I fully understand where Gettleman's coming from. I disagree with the selection and the reason I do is a lot of other teams, or not a lot, but at least a few other teams, and you could see that Jones was rated as low as like the 70th best prospect by certain teams. Was he rated the even best quarterback in this draft? Not necessarily. However, the pick is in. I mean, for this kid too, and he comes across well. Listen, he's got all the character traits you want in a quarterback.
He's got the size.
But this kid is going to come into a white-hot media spotlight and giant fan base that, at least half are not down with the pick. But I'm going to turn it over to you. You just made a very poignant observation before the show started. Why don't you talk about who the Giants selected in 1979 and what his stats were?
I know.
And how did that work out?
And I think all the Giant fans who oohed and awed and threw their arms up in disgust when they took Philip Sims from Morehead State in 1979, whose senior year had 5 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions.
Right.
And yes, did he pan out? Absolutely. Won a Super Bowl and
Not a
probably
Hall of
had
Fame quarterback, but obviously had a great Giant career.
So, and the reason that I said the Giants were going to take a quarterback is there were too many things out there that were open. I mean, we knew that the Dolphins needed a quarterback, that the Bengals could go for a quarterback.
Redskins.
And the Redskins were even, the 15th pick before the Giants. So, why take the chance? I liked the pick, and they ended up getting their defensive guy, Dexter Lawrence. At
17, that's a stretch, too. I really think. Is he a... I don't know. He fills a need. I'm not going to say he's not a good player. They won 2 national championships at Clemson. And Clemson actually had all 3 of their defensive linemen go rated highly.
I think
Farrell,
it's the first time one school had 3 defensive linemen drafted in the first round since, I want to say, North Carolina State. I can't even remember who all 3 of them were. But
you and I were texting during the draft with our brother Tom as well, and I thought because that Jawan Taylor was still there that they were going to go offensive tackle there. And when they said Dexter Lawrence. All right, we'll see. But he fills a need. But listen, the Giants draft Daniel Jones and Dexter Lawrence.
And Steve, to your point, listen,
I just think it's a bit of a reach.
I know, but you had it pegged right when Rashawn Gary went at 12 to the Packers.
Right.
And the more and more I thought about it, he really didn't have the production that his marquee, name suggested, number 1 recruit out of school and so forth, and it's kind of banged up.
Yeah.
So there were a couple other guys that went before Lawrence, which you could question that too. I mean, Farrell obviously is one. Williams, I don't think was a reach. And by the way, he's a very nice kid, very very classy kid. Saw an interview with him.
With who? Jonah Williams?
No, with Keenan Williams.
Oh, Keenan. Yeah.
Classy kid.
Yeah, kid lost his mom to cancer
Yep.
when he was like 12 years old.
But a very humble kid, and he's really good. So I think the Jets did well on that pick.
I do too. I think that was a rock solid pick for them.
But to your point, Gary going before Dexter Lawrence, I don't know.
Okay.
Well,
what about this Jeffrey Simmons? Let's talk about that for a second. So obviously he's still sitting there late first round, and a video is shown. It wasn't the Laramie Tunzel bong mask, mind you, but it was a disturbing video of an altercation. I think it was his sister and mother, and the kid got involved. Did he throw a couple little haymakers in there? Heat of the moment. But to this kid's credit, right? He went to Mississippi State, and the kid became an academic All-American. He did everything in his power to clean up that mistake that he made. He volunteers. He's I don't know. You talk.
I have a hard time looking past that.
I get it, but we're all entitled to second chances.
Agreed.
And the reason I'm bringing him up is was rated without this incident. He would have been like a top. He would have been in the top 10, no question.
Yeah.
So but he had a character issue, and so he fell to where did he go? To Titans, I think.
Tennessee, yeah.
Drafted him.
The 19th pick.
Yeah. So let's talk about Dwayne Haskins, because we did a lot on him. The Redskins, like we talked about last week, I thought a landing spot could have been Cincinnati at 11. Then the rumor started that Washington obviously was all in on him, and that they made mortgage the future like they did for RG3. And I gave the Redskins some credit then for being patient and letting Haskins fall to them, and I think that's a perfect fit for both teams.
Well, yeah, we talked about it a little bit last week on the show that he's from that area, and Snyder wanted him. Snyder wanted him.
Yeah.
I'm a little. I thought the Giants would. It was a good chance that the Giants were going to take him.
Mm-hmm.
But they took Jones, which left the door wide open. And I actually thought Cincinnati.
They took Jonah Williams. It was the best tackle in the draft.
Agreed. So
tackle.
That's fine if they're going to stick with Dalton for another couple of years.
No, but they actually drafted, I think, in the second round, Ryan Finley, who was highly rated.
Yeah.
He was probably like the 5th or 6th rated quarterback. So they addressed their quarterback need. Not that he's the face of the franchise going forward, but it's a good selection at number 2.
Right, but what was also risky for the Redskins not to move up, because I thought the Dolphins were primed to take a quarterback as well.
Right.
And they did not.
Now, you know what? The more I thought about that, or actually, again, we talked about it, and I forgot, to be honest, Brian Flores is their new coach. He was New England's defensive coordinator last year, defensive guy.
Yeah.
So taking Christian Wilkins with that 13th pick was a good move.
And maybe in hindsight, they actually knew what was going to happen. They were going to trade for Rosen anyway. So.
No doubt. And we talked about landing spot for Rosen, Miami being one of them, the Giants, and so on and so forth. But I think that's a good fit, too, for Rosen to go to Miami. You got Fitzpatrick there.
And if you recall, listen, I went on record as saying I was a big proponent of the Giants taking Rosen last year.
Right.
And I don't think his rookie season was indicative of what kind of player he is. So.
I don't either. I think Arizona had a lot of problems.
Big time.
Got thrown to the wolves, so to speak. But I was a fan of Rosen in college. I think he's a smart kid.
Yep, I do too.
And playing, in a sunny environment, again, like Arizona down in Miami. I think he will be probably at some point on the field. Fitzpatrick obviously is such a journeyman and susceptible to injury.
And he's also 800 pounds.
And he's 800 pounds and with the heavy beard and so on. So, but, so Miami, my point being is they got a defensive-minded head coach.
Yeah,
so they pick at 13.
Looking back now, I think you're right. That was actually a pretty wise decision. If they knew all along they were going to get Rosen.
Yeah. So, back to Josh Allen. I mean, we haven't even spoken about him. So he falls, and at number 7, he's sitting there. Tom Coughlin's drafting, pounces on him. I really think this Allen's going to be a player in the league. Like a Devin White. I think this guy's got all-pro written on him. I think he's just he's a fierce pass rusher, and I think Jacksonville got a great pick at 7, and I don't think they thought in their wildest dreams he'd be there.
Well, there were a lot of quality defensive players. The kid Burns from Florida State and so forth. He's up
went
there.
To Carolina, right?
And and Montez Sweat falls to the Redskins.
The Redskins had a good draft, and then they actually took Bryce Love, the running back from Stanford.
Yeah, way late though.
I think he had a knee injury his senior year.
Okay.
So, but if he's healthy, that's a good pick for them. But the Redskins overall had a real good draft.
I wanted to ping you on this because I watched them play, and he didn't jump out to me as a number 1 pick. Jerry Tillery.
Yeah,
to the Chargers. That kind of a dominating first-round pick kind of guy?
I'm all in on him. I think he's a good pick for them.
I watched Notre Dame week after week, and he never jumped off the page to me. I don't know.
That's a good thing, though. I'm for the fans, I'm a big Notre Dame football fan, always have been, and I think Tillery's a good pick.
Yeah.
And on Notre Dame's defense, Julian Love, the corner, believe the New York Giants selected him, like third round, fourth round, something along those lines. I think he
Okay.
can be a solid guy.
I wanted to ask you about Tillery because I didn't see that as I didn't see him as a number one pick, but that's.
No, so he's he's in San Diego.
But look, overall, when you look at what the Giants did, and they got DeAndre Baker,
Yeah,
also in the first round.
yeah, we haven't talked about that. They trade back up to what, number 30 or so.
Yeah.
And, listen, he was their highest rated guy on the board at that point. At corner, it addresses a need.
Big time need too.
And we'll see how he pans out. He's not the biggest corner out there, but he had a solid career at Georgia, and Georgia obviously has played very well.
Yeah, won the Jim Thorpe Award as like the best defensive back.
So essentially, Jabril Peppers, Dexter Lawrence, because they already had their number 6. And who's the other kid that they took? It's a defensive end. The
Giants,
Okimi or something like that. So essentially, Odell Beckham was traded for those 3 players. And, again, I think a lot of Giant fans will say they didn't get the value for that. But
I disagree.
I disagree, too. I think it was time for OBJ to move on.
Yeah, and they got, like I said, Julian Love he brought that up too. That was another great pick.
I think so, too.
That's why they could afford to have, let Collins go and all that stuff. They filled their needs. I tip my hat to Gettleman.
So as a Dallas Cowboy fan, I need to mention that we didn't have our first round pick because of the Amari Cooper trade, but I'm all in on that trade. We would have had the 27th overall pick. I'll take Cooper at age 25, 26. Obviously, his stats were great when he got to the Cowboys, helps Dak. So the Cowboys, I think, went defensive line where a buddy of mine who's a big Cowboy fan, Anthony Macefield, I think we both thought that's a glaring need because we got a guy suspended every other week on the defensive line. So
Well, the Cowboys' first pick
we took this Tristan Smith out of UCF. And he's a big kid.
I think their first pick was Connor McGovern, the guard.
No, McGovern was third round, and Tristan Smith was the second round pick.
Oh.
So, but we addressed both sides of the line.
Tristan
Offense and defensive line, I'm down with that. We took a couple running backs. Actually, we took in the last round, 7th, Mike Weber from Ohio State, who was Zeke's backup, actually, at Ohio State a couple years back.
Right.
And also we took a running back, Tony Pollard. He is from Memphis, so we'll see how it goes. So I just wanted to address.
So, but what are the Cowboys thinking? Is Frederick done as a center, or are they going to move McGovern to guard?
No, I think La'el Collins. This is the guy that we drafted a couple years back. He was highly rated coming out of LSU. He's probably his 4th year in the league. He got caught up. He got smeared, actually. He was accused of something he didn't do, and that crushed his draft value. So we took a supplemental pick for him. But his contract is coming up in this year, and he may bolt free agency. So I think the Connor McGovern pick was good for depth on the line. Travis Frederick obviously missed all of last year. He had autoimmune disease or something, Crohn's disease, something along those lines. But he seems to be healthy and back. And the one other guy who had the same thing that Frederick had was Mark Schlereth, excuse me, who played for the Redskins and Broncos back in the day. Yeah. Stink is his nickname. So, but he came back strong too.
He won 2 Super Bowls, one with the Skins and one with the Broncos.
Yeah. So, so the Cowboys are. I just wanted to touch on them for our Cowboys.
All right. Well, all right. I thought McGovern was their first pick. I stand corrected. But Tristan Hill from University of Central Florida.
Right. Who had the last 2 years? His team was 13-0 the year before,
yeah.
And I think they lost in the bowl game. I think.
Right, but they had 2 stellar seasons.
Yeah,
right?
But they're back. They've actually. He was part of the team that helped UCF actually become into the national limelight. So.
And before we move on, let's just, because there was a couple of interesting picks, and like I said, everyone's always quick to write off the Patriots got to start falling off the map, right?
Yeah.
They had a couple of good picks. Chase Winovich from Michigan.
I was going to bring him up. He looks like a New England Patriot type of player.
Absolutely.
Smart linebacker out of Michigan.
He was all over the field last
Yeah.
year on every single play.
I
so.
did notice that.
And they also got Stidham from
Yeah, Jarrett
Auburn,
Stidham, the quarterback from Auburn.
okay. They didn't give
Why
up
not?
much
They
to get him.
didn't give up really nothing to get him.
No.
So the Pats are, they'll be back in contention as always
Yes, they will.
in that tough AFC East.
Yeah. And we did mention that Rosen did get traded. And like I said, kind of saw that coming. Just a couple of quick things while we're on the NFL. And Steve and I have always been big fans of this 30 for 30 and E60 stuff on ESPN. It's really a great show.
Right.
There was one on Tony Mandarich.
The incredible bust.
Also known as the Incredible Bulk as
Yeah.
well. It's actually a half hour. It's worth a watch for NFL fans. I mean, we watched this guy just grow. He was the biggest guy on the planet.
Right, and athletic for the size. So he played left tackle at Michigan State. I want to say he was in the 89 draft, and I think let's say 86, 87, 88, 89, right, at Michigan State.
And of course, Saban knew nothing about
Right,
it.
so Nick Saban actually was a young assistant on Michigan State, and of course had no idea that Tony was dabbling in steroids. None. But anyway, the thing about Mandarich was he would literally block a guy out of the screen on the a Saturday afternoon, and we'd be like, holy Christ, look at this guy. So he was in consideration as the number 1 overall pick with number 8 Troy Aikman.
Yeah.
So the Cowboys were 1-15 the year before that Jimmy took over. So the debate was Aikman or Mandarich for the Cowboys. And I remember actually having this conversation with you, my brothers, and friends, and saying, who do you take at number 1? Do you take Troy Aikman or Tony Mandarich, right?
Yep.
And my God, that's like Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf type of thing, right? Could
Yep.
you imagine if the Cowboys took Tony Mandarich instead of Troy Aikman? History would have been altered.
That's right.
So the point of the 30-30 was Mandarich then was selected by Green Bay, number 2
And
overall.
it started out like a real dirtbag,
Yeah, he was.
held out, I'm not going to Green Bay. I deserve more money than anybody because I'm Tony Mandarich.
And he did hold out.
He did.
And if you watch it too, it was stark. So Mandarich was taking steroids. He said he stopped going into the NFL. Then he got addicted to painkillers.
That's right.
But the first practice, this is why it's for our football fans are recommending it. His first practice when he finally suits up, the Green Bay vets were salivating.
Oh, he got schooled by who? T.J. Harris?
Tim Harris.
Tim Harris.
Right? Lined up in practice, and when we say destroyed him, right? So right there, Green Bay execs and coaches, and Lindy Infante, as a name from the past, was the head coach. And my God, I think Green Bay did a double take and said, oh my God, what do we get ourselves into here?
And they gave him the $1 million contract and kind of thing, and they cut him after 4 years.
Yep.
But the irony of it, who signed him?
The Colts, right?
Who was the head coach of the Colts?
Lindy Infante.
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy.
And he actually had a couple decent years, but nowhere near the potential of what he should have been, could have been. And
not
all
for
that.
a number 2 pick in the draft.
So Tony Mandarich, let's give him some credit, though. I mean, he sat down for an interview, and he was very candid. And he just, again, he was kind of humbled by it. And he just told his story, right?
No,
But I'll give him credit for answering the questions and being completely honest about it.
Yep.
So for our football fans, if you want to check that out, I think it's a worthy half an hour.
When I first turned it on and I saw him like today, Tony Mandarich, I go, who is this?
Yeah.
And then I realized it was Tony Mandarich, and it's certainly obviously half the man he once was, but it was interesting stories gone on, and he's a photographer now.
Yeah, he's got a successful business.
It was a good
and
story.
He's a happy life now. So.
And one other thing, it was actually an interesting thing on it was an E60 on this kid David Sills, He was like this 13-year-old phenom, quarterback, and he hired. There's some quarterback guru that guys like Leinert and all these guys used back then. I forgot his name.
Steve Clarkson, something like that.
Yeah,
I know who you're talking
something
about.
Leonard or Clarkson,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's Clarkson.
And so this guy's 13 years old. His dream is to go to USC. So Lane Kiffin, joke of a coach anyway, offers him a scholarship at 13. Anyway, the net is he ultimately gets hurt, can't throw the ball anymore, transfers to West Virginia, became like an All-American, led the nation in touchdown catches. And we were just talking, Steve and I, before the show. He didn't get drafted, but he just signed a free agent contract with the Buffalo Bills. So it actually turned out to be a pretty cool story.
No, good. That's cool. I haven't seen it yet, but I definitely will dial that one
It's
in.
worth
that was
watching.
on this weekend, right? Just came out?
It's worth watching. It was an interesting story. And he really turned into quite a wide receiver at West Virginia. Even Will Greer said, he's good. He's a good player. All right, so let's move on. We covered the NFL pretty well. And again, we'll take some emails to all you disgruntled Giants fans. And please
Right.
feel free at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com.
That's right. So I'd like to shift gears here to a notable passing.
Please do.
And I think he kind of got lost over the weekend because of the draft and everything else. John Havlicek, Boston Celtics, passed away at age 79, I think Thursday of last week.
Worth mentioning.
And one of the all-time greatest NBA basketball players, bar none.
Yep.
And, his stats, if you look at them, are incredible. So John Havlicek is one of two players, LeBron James being the other one now, with over 26,000 career points,
Okay.
over 8,000 rebounds, and over 6,000 assists. So Havlicek played 17 years, went to Ohio State, was notable for winning the national championship with a couple, for our older Knick fans, one Jerry Lucas, number 32, who was instrumental in the Knicks' championship years, and one Robert Montgomery Knight of Indiana fame. And so they had a great, threesome at Ohio State, gets drafted by the Celtics. John goes on to win 8 titles.
Wow.
And second to Bill Russell at 11, and Sam Jones had 10. And John was also a 13-time All-Star, and 11 years was All-NBA. Made the All-Defensive Team, etc.
All-around ball player.
All around, the stats are incredible. He's the Celtics all-time leader in points.
And you know who I assimilate him with in sports he was a dominant player at his position, but he was just as classy and articulate off the field, Roger Staubach.
Sure, that's a great comparison.
I always assimilated both of those going.
Right.
If everybody could be like these guys
Yeah.
and be that good at what you do and be that good off the field,
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah. So John Havlicek.
I'm glad you brought that up, Steve.
Yeah, I
It's
thought
certainly worth
that was
mentioning.
important. So, John
R.I.P.
Havlicek.
Hondo.
R.I.P. Hondo.
Good. So listen, since we brought him up, we'll stick with the NBA. Not a lot to report. Same kind of stuff. Bucks, Celtics, right? I guess the series is the Golden State Warriors and Harden, and we were talking about before the show about how Harden,
He's bitching and moaning. He gets fouled, and Chris Paul gets fouled, so on and so forth. But listen, just shut up and play. Really,
they don't
That's
have
all
the
I gotta
talent
say.
to beat the Warriors anyway. Like
No,
I said,
we're picking the Warriors
Yeah.
to win their third, and then they're going to bust it up.
And the first, I guess you call it a surprise, the Bucks getting blown out by the Celtics, but that series is far from over. This guy Antetokounmpo is
Right,
He's
but
a beast.
I think the
He's a
difference with Boston and Milwaukee, though, is if Giannis doesn't have a great game, they really don't have,
Agreed.
The cast of characters that Boston has. Boston has depth. So I think that was stark in the game yesterday.
You're right about that.
But we'll see how that plays out.
I can't name 3 other guys on Milwaukee.
Right,
that have been
this guy
signed in.
Chris Middleton had a good year. basically, and yeah, like yourself, I mean, it's Milwaukee Bucks. Let's be real. So, but they're going to be on the scene for moving forward.
Yeah.
And then, like sleeper is still doesn't get
Toronto.
a lot of respect. Is Toronto. So they they're up 1-0 on Philly. Kawhi Leonard is one of the top scorers in the league. I don't know. I think he's a one and done with Toronto. Would be my guess. But I'm rooting for Toronto. Actually, I don't like the Philadelphia 76ers team.
Yeah.
I mentioned that.
Yep.
I don't like the characters on that team. And,
Agreed.
I'm rooting for Toronto, so we'll see how that plays out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Let's hit the NHL, right? Some really good series, and
Yeah.
like you said, Steve, we talked about it before. Our condolences to our fans who we said it didn't seem like the Caps could possibly lose Game 7 at
Yeah.
home, and they did.
I would like to apologize to any of our Carolina Hurricane fans out there because we did. At least I did. I
did too.
I said that Washington going home Game 7 should win, and we were looking forward to a Caps Islanders series. However, watching Carolina beat Washington going into Landover in Game 7, double overtime too. That was another
Yep.
component, and they won. And their coach is Rod Brindamore. They hired Brindamore this year. Brindamore was a
Former
Philadelphia Flyer for
many
God.
years.
He played well over a decade, I think, with them.
Absolutely.
But now they're up 2-0 on the Islanders. And what's funny about the Islanders thing is, the Islanders, they train in Long Island. They play some games at Nassau. They're going to head back to Nassau, which is the right move. But these first two games are at Barclays Center. And I don't know if that's really the home ice advantage because the Coliseum is a different place to play.
I saw an interview with Butch
Right?
Goring
And
this
I just
morning
wanted to
about that.
throw that out there that, I'm not saying that's the reason they're down 2-0 because Carolina is playing great defensive hockey. So they unfortunately their goalie Mrazek got hurt, so they got their backup in there, and we'll see how long he's out. But hey, they're up 2-0.
And I got it.
They're
Listen,
playing great, so I don't know what to say.
I agree.
I didn't see that coming.
And the Islanders were off for 10 days. That's a long time to be sitting on the sideline. But they have a lot of young, good talent.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
they're going to be a team. And yeah, you're right. Once they move back full time to the Coliseum,
Yeah, they're going to be
a
super
team.
relevant again.
big time.
And then the other series, Boston and Columbus, is the Bees are up. We predicted Boston was going to beat Toronto. So the Boston's off to a 2-0 start against a tough Columbus squad. Double overtime victory yesterday.
Yeah.
That's good hockey. That series is not over, and the Islanders series isn't over,
Yeah.
right? But both teams, Columbus and the Islanders, need a victory, Game 3, or it's pretty much lights out.
I don't know if we even covered this last week, but the Sharks, they won that game, right? They came back and scored.
That was, I think, after the show.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that.
Oh my God! What one of the worst calls ever.
Right. So it was Game 7, right? San Jose, Vegas. 5 minutes to go, maybe 5 and change.
Yep.
And San Jose's Joe Pavelski, who is a perennial all-star, real good hockey player.
Yep.
Listen, he should have got the Academy Award for, he gets cross-checked. Now, was that a 5-minute major penalty? Absolutely not. Was it a 2-minute penalty? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll give you credit for that. However, San Jose is down, and they scored 3 goals in this 5-minute power play due to this questionable penalty.
Highly questionable.
Right.
And then they won it in overtime.
And then they go win it in overtime. But I mean, that was, you don't want to compare it to the Rams Saints
I
blown
know,
call
and that's
thing.
what people do. But
I'm not. But listen, that's hockey. That's the way it happened. But it was stunning, really, to see, San Jose come back, get those 3 goals.
Yeah.
And you could just see the life being sucked out of Vegas, right?
and we've seen hatchet jobs and cross checks to the head where you didn't even get 5 minutes.
No
this
doubt.
was off on the face
Right,
off.
like a Marty McSorley swat over the head of somebody. I
Yeah.
don't remember who we had.
Oh,
But that was that was the talk around the water cooler for the hockey fans. Obviously, the next morning. So
But hockey, it's very very exciting, and all of these overtime games, it really has a lot more appeal to me than the
No,
NBA does.
no
That's
doubt,
for sure.
we're all in on hockey on this show.
Yeah. So we'll stay tuned. We'll give some updates next week on the show and see how things play out.
Yeah.
Baseball, right? You got to tip your hat to the Yankees. These guys are winning with this ragtag Bad News Bears team, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
So.
And I was ready to give up on this guy Sanchez, and all of a sudden now he starts going on this tear, and he's hit a mammoth.
Anybody that knows me knows I'm not a Sanchez guy. Don't get me wrong. He can hit home runs. I still think he's a dog. I need to see consistency out of this guy.
Me too.
But is he on a tear? Sure is.
Sure is.
He's certainly, with all the injuries they have. So the Yankees are playing well on the West Coast, and I think they head to Arizona now. They
for
just
a 2-game series.
they played a crappy Giants team who's
Crappy Angels team too.
right. But listen, they're winning.
They won
The
5
Red
out of
Sox.
6.
The Red Sox are struggling still. Chris Sale in Boston is 0-5. They just gave him a ton of dough. So for our Red Sox nation, I don't have any sympathy. Sorry.
Right, but don't panic
No.
because they still, like I
It's
said,
so
you
early
go up
still.
and down that lineup, and they're still pretty good.
Nah,
So,
but you're right. The Yanks are playing well. I think they're probably 5 games over now.
Yep.
Right, and they got 3 more on the West Coast, and they come home. But they need their troops back. A lot of guys are still injured, so it's good that they're doing what they're doing now,
yeah.
and getting a cushion there,
Right.
and chalking up the wins.
So there was an interesting fact, and I wanted to bring this up because this kind of caught me off guard. This Max Scherzer,
Mm-hmm.
3rd fastest pitcher to 2,500 strikeouts.
Yeah, that's when you told me that. I said, "What?"
Exactly. I mean, I was so surprised because I go, "How old is this guy?" And you mentioned he's 33, but
Right,
it's still relatively.
And then I asked
young.
you who were the top 2, and I mean, I think any baseball fan worth their salt would obviously think of Nolan Ryan being number 1,
And Randy Johnson.
and Randy Johnson was number 2, was the fastest, and Scherzer. But yeah, I found that a bit surprising.
I don't
And he's 33. We just looked him up. He's 33 years old.
yeah. Cy Young, 3-time Cy Young Award winner.
Well, he started his career with the Tigers. I remember him on the Tigers, and I think he signed as a free agent with the Nationals, I think.
Yes.
But he's having a great career.
I mean,
Money pitcher.
when you think about it, though, like Sabathia seems like he's been around for 20 years, and he's knocking on 3,000. We'll get that next week.
Yeah.
Excuse me, 2,500. That early in his career.
That's a good, like we said, that's good stuff.
I mean, this guy's Hall of Fame bound, no question about it. I mean, just with that alone.
Sure.
And we saw it. He's one of, I think, 5 pitchers to win a Cy Young in both leagues, with Gaylord Perry, Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, and Roger Clemens.
Right. Sounds right.
So that's pretty good company.
Yeah. And then we got an email actually from one of our listeners who, because we tatted Christian Yelich on the show a couple times. So, I mean, for April, Yelich has 14 home runs, and now Cody Bellinger. So our listener,
Jim Smith from Yonkers.
Jim Smith from Yonkers, pointed out that, Cody Bellinger, this is his 3rd year, but this guy, right, has 14 homers too. They both just tied the record for homers in April,
Yep.
with Pujols and A-Rod, right? So I know Yelich, I saw yesterday, took himself out of a game of the lower back, so I'm going to say he's probably going to sit, but Bellinger probably has at least 1 game to get to 15. And, for our baseball fans, his father, Yankee fans, was Clay Bellinger. And Clay Bellinger, right, we just looked up his stats, and he played for the Yankees from like 99, 03, got a cup of coffee with the Angels after the Yankees. 12 career home runs for father Clay and his son hit 14 in
In 1 month.
Isn't that funny?
Right.
I thought that was unbelievable.
Well, and it didn't go unnoticed, and we appreciate Jim Smith's email. Because, by the way, he's a Dodgers fan.
Oh, was that right? Okay. Jim Smith, Dodger fan,
Yes, he
duly
is.
noted.
But he's also a Notre Dame fan in
Okay.
football and so forth. So very sports savvy. So
Yeah.
thanks, Jim, for
Thanks,
that.
Jim, for the email. Appreciate that.
And while we're shouting out and so forth, let's give a shout out to George Breen, who also gave us an
good
email,
feedback.
some feedback on the draft and so forth. So thank you, George. Appreciate that.
I do know George isn't down with the Daniel Jones selection. I will tell you that. So-
No, he's not. George is our resident golf expert,
He
actually.
is.
So he's certainly a proficient golfer himself.
That's
so
right. So
We'll look to some emails from him about who he's going to pick for the PGA coming up in 2.5
absolutely,
weeks.
no doubt.
So listen, before we sign off here, obviously, what happens in the first Saturday in May? The Kentucky Derby. So, I've been on quite a roll over the past couple of years.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Derby. It's a big field, and it's usually a big field nowadays for some reason. So my horse that I'm picking, and he's not going to go. I think who's going to go off as the favorite is going to be either Omaha Beach and Roadster. Those are going to be the top two. And Omaha Beach, he won the Arkansas, and Roadster won the Santa Anita. So I take him right out of the mix because the Santa Anita is that artificial track, and it just never pans out. I can't remember the last time a Santa Anita Derby went.
But that's the track that I kept forgetting to talk about. This is the track where 23 horses have been
I've died in the
euthanized based on
broken legs.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's for we're going to touch on that on another show, but that is some.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say about that.
So that's why I'm not thinking he's going to be in there. So I'm going to give you 3 horses that I think are going to be in the mix. All right, Tacitus, and Tacitus won the Wood, which I believe Derby winners have won the Wood before. So that's not out of. And he's probably going to go off as the 3rd favorite unless they get a lot of money with him. And Vacoma, he won the Bluegrass Stakes, which is a very prominent race at Keeneland racetrack in Kentucky. And I'm going to take one of my reaches and so forth and win. Now Win came in 2nd in the Bluegrass, but it looked like he had some gas in him. So I'm gonna give him benefit of the doubt that he may actually come in at least show.
Okay.
All right, but I'm gonna pick Tacitus to win the Kentucky Derby.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's the best 2 minutes in sports, no question about it. It's very exciting, and if you guys have some thoughts before Saturday, please send them to our mailbox, and we'd love to get some feedback on it.
Cool. So let's shout out to our sponsors as always. We want to thank our sponsors. And we'll lead the pack with Di Filippi's Bakery out of Monticello, New York.
Yep.
The best cannoli in the area, no doubt.
And actually, you know what yesterday was? National Blueberry Pie Day.
Oh.
So I'd like to know whether or not they sold more blueberry
I will
pies
find that
yesterday.
out from our sponsor, Carmela, very soon.
Yeah.
Let our audience know.
I was chuckling.
But their
when I saw that.
blueberry pie is to die for.
Oh,
You
my
got to
God.
go with the blueberry crumb, I must say.
I'm gonna bet they sold more yesterday than they do on every other Sunday.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Who else we got? Coriano Trucking Incorporated.
Yeah.
Just actually heard from the president of Coriano Trucking this morning, who's now become a regular listener of our show since he became a sponsor and so forth. And
Good. Hi, Guy. Thank you for being a sponsor of the show.
yep. And of course, our longtime sponsors have been Harley Davidson of Utica, and President Joe Carbone and so forth. And we thank him for his loyalty as we do with Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. They've been with us throughout the whole thing, and we certainly appreciate their support.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right, so
Yep.
listen, enjoy it. Enjoy the Derby, and you got emails, send them off to us, and we look forward to speaking with you guys next week.
Adios, amigos.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.